I've seen it happen a lot. You grab a cheap countertop slicer because the price tag looks friendly, you get it home, and within the first week you're fighting a jammed blade, uneven cuts, and a feeling that you've just bought a paper-thin safety hazard. The regret hits fast, especially when you were hoping to slice deli meats for a weekend party, or shave cheese for a cheese board without a circus of frustration. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So the question is, does the Berkel 827E Plus 12-inch gravity feed slicer feel like a smarter buy? Or is it just another shiny kitchen gadget that will end up in the back of the cupboard? First, let's talk about the kind of setup you're really dealing with. This isn't a handheld mandolin, or a budget slicer you bolt onto a kitchen island. The Berkel line has been a staple in professional delis for decades, and the 827E Plus keeps that heritage alive with a full-size, 12-inch knife that hangs from a sturdy steel frame. The gravity feed part isn't just a marketing buzzword. The blade sits under a slight incline, letting the product you're slicing slide onto the cutting edge by its own weight. That means you don't have to push hard on a carriage, you don't have to fight a motor that tries to force the food through. In practice, the result is a smoother, more consistent slice whether you're working with a slab of ham, a wheel of cheddar, or a block of roast beef. I spent a solid afternoon testing it in two very different scenarios. In a home kitchen, I set it up on my countertop, fed a block of mozzarella, and watched the slices fall neatly onto a tray. No wobble, no sudden stutter, just a steady stream of 1mm slices that were perfect for a caprese salad. Later that week, I helped a friend who runs a small catering service. He mounted the slicer on a stainless steel work table, slipped a 10-pound roast turkey into the feed, and within minutes had uniform slices ready for sandwich trays. The gravity feed kept the pressure consistent, so the blade didn't dig into the meat or leave ragged edges. In both cases, the biggest win was the predictability. Once you set the thickness, you get it every time, without constantly readjusting a dial or fighting a motor that stalls. Now, the price point is where the hesitation usually lives. A Berkel isn't cheap, and you'll see cheaper alternatives that promise professional results for a fraction of the cost. The problem with those knockoffs is they often cut corners on the motor, the blade mounting, or the safety guard. That translates into more maintenance, a higher likelihood of blade wobble, and a safety risk if the guard isn't robust. The 827E Plus, by contrast, carries the weight of a brand that's been building industrial slicers for over a century. You're essentially buying a piece of equipment that was designed to survive the daily grind of a deli, not just occasional weekend use. Who should seriously consider this slicer? If you run a deli, a sandwich shop, a catering operation, or even a small butcher stall, the 12-inch blade size gives you the reach you need for larger cuts without having to reposition the product constantly. The gravity feed reduces the strain on your hands, which is a subtle but important benefit when you're slicing dozens of pounds of meat in a shift. For home chefs who love entertaining, think cheese parties, charcuterie boards, or regular meat lover gatherings, the machine pays for itself in the time it saves and the quality of the slices. The consistency also matters. If you're preparing meals for a diet that counts carbs or proteins, you can trust each slice to be the same thickness. On the flip side, if you're a casual cook who only slices a few pieces of cheese a month, this might be overkill. It sits on a countertop and needs a dedicated power outlet, so you'll be dedicating floor space to a tool you'll barely use. If your kitchen is already cramped, the footprint could feel intrusive. Also, the initial learning curve, getting the thickness dial just right and feeding food smoothly, takes a few tries, so you'll need a little patience before you get the perfect slice. Practical strengths show up in everyday use. The first is the low-maintenance blade. Because the blade isn't constantly being driven by a high-speed motor, there's less wear, and you don't have to sharpen it as often. The second is safety. The Berkel's guard is solid steel that,